Hello fellow orchid lovers. Just doing a brief video. Have some bad news about my Shari baby. She seemed to be doing great. I've had her for about 2 months now. New growths in the back. Eyes appeared to be moving. Her flower spike was doing great. And then I woke up this morning making myself a cup of coffee and I go, hey, that doesn't look right. And sure enough, her flower spike is dying back. So, very sad about that. Thought she was doing okay. So it made me think to myself, well, what's going on here? And at first I wasn't even going to share this news. I was so upset about it. But then I realized this is a great opportunity for me to share a mistake that I've made so potentially other people can learn from it and not make the same mistake. My thought immediately went to the water. There must be something about the water that is bothering her. And so I decided to test her water. So I have my TDS meter here. So it reads 0. I put it in to her water. And see, it's only reading 50. So that's not bad. That's actually really, really low. So that can't be it. And for a while now, I've been thinking to myself, it's been a while since I flushed my orchids. I should probably do that. But I've been kind of putting it off because it's a lot of water that I have to buy. I buy distilled water, so it's a lot of water that I'd have to buy to flush all of my orchids. I don't share water. So I've been kind of putting it off. Big mistake. Look at that. So this is the water that she was sitting in. She hasn't been flushed in a while. So this water is triple, and this is distilled water I put her in. This is what's coming off of her roots. She's been sitting in here for probably about an hour in the distilled water, and it raised the TDS from 0 to 152. So I'm thinking it probably was that this orchid was getting either root burn. I don't see any root burn, but possibly root burn, or it was killing her growing tips because it was just too much fertilizer, too much of those dissolved solids hanging out in her roots. So I'm going to dump this distilled water. I'm going to put her in more and continue to flush her roots until I get a much lower number, as close to 0 as I can possibly get it. I'm not going to get it to 0 because that's just impossible when you're putting something organic in distilled water. There's always going to be some type of reading. But I'm going to continue to flush her roots and get her as low as possible. And I'm going to give her several weeks of just distilled water so that she can maybe bounce back. I'm pretty sure the flower spike is a goner. I really think it's just going to continue to die back. But I want to make the plant happy again. So that's my plan. I went out and I bought gallons and gallons of distilled water. So I'm going to do it to every single one of my plants. I'm going to flush every single one of my plants, get a TDS reading on it so I can see just how bad it is. So now I can learn from this. So like I said in my last video, we got to watch our plants. We got to learn. I didn't want to share this travesty, but I figured it would be something that could maybe help others. So it's my fault. I was lazy about flushing out the roots and, you know, looking after something that I was kind of putting off. And now my Shari baby and myself, because I was really looking forward to these blooms, now we're paying the price. So, again, keep an eye on your orchids. They're going to tell you what's going on. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't know until something like this happens. But you know, again, it's a learning experience. So now I know part of my monthly schedule, I have to add a flush once a week, once a month, maybe twice a month. Really depends on the kind of results. You know, I do have these meters, so it does make it a little easier for me to monitor exactly what's going on with my water. In a past video, I showed these. These are very cheap. You can get them on Amazon. I think anywhere from the $10 to $15 range. This is the TDS, the total dissolved solids, and then this is a pH meter. And they're very helpful and they're cheap. And if you're going to have a collection of more than a few orchids, it's probably a good investment for you. For instance, I wouldn't have known that this water was incredibly high in the TDS for an orchid to sit in. You know, if you're just going to feed your orchids and the water's just going to go through the pot and, you know, disperse, that may not be an incredibly high TDS reading for you, depending on how you feed your orchids. But for an orchid that's going to be sitting in water, if it has that amount of total dissolved solids on its roots, that's not good. And that's why she's unhappy. So learn my lesson. I'm going to add a flush to my orchid schedule and possibly adjust my fertilizing schedule. And, you know, once I come up with a good ratio, I'll share that as well. But, yeah, that's what happened. So anyways, plant's not dead, so it's not the worst news in the world. She's still healthy otherwise. It's just the spike is unhappy, and I'm going to lose that. So that's sad, but the plant's going to make it, and that's the best news here. So we're just going to go with that. And yeah, so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you next time.